Cost management is actually cost is one of the triple constraints of project management. So without money, you can't survive in a project. So more than on top of all, cost management is plays a very really important role. Okay. So listen carefully because there would be some methods you could use in your real life as well. So cost management in IT projects is really important because IT projects have a poor track record in meeting budget goals. So some research has found out that in Oxford University, they have done a project, research project. They say that half of the large IT projects, those with initial price tags over $15 million, massively below their project. And large IT projects also run 45% over the budget. Okay, so there's a very big difference between the planned cost and the actual cost of a project. So because of that, this cost management has become really important topic. So what are the reasons for these cost overruns? So to have a solution, we have to first look at the problem and the reason. So actually one reason is not emphasizing the importance of realistic project cost estimate. Okay. And in one hand, since IT projects start with very unclear project requirements, it's quite difficult to develop these project estimates realistically. Okay, so there's a problem there as well because of the unclear requirements. Quite difficult to estimate the costs at the initial stage. And many IT professionals like managers think this cost estimation is not their job, but it's a job of accountants. Okay. However, since project manager is responsible for the cost management of a project, it becomes a part of his duty to develop a realistic schedule. Okay. So more the experienced the project manager, the budget also becomes realistic, more realistic. And on the other hand, for IT projects specifically, this technology changing thing affects. Many new technologies are suggested to use, which may not have been used by the project members. So the estimates may go wrong, okay? Because of the involvement of this new technology, so which would involve untested products, and it would have inherent risks which would take more time and cost than expected, okay? So these are the some reasons for cost overruns. You can think of other reasons as well. So what is cost first? What is cost management? Cost is the amount of money we need to spend on a particular activity completion. So what's cost management? Cost management is managing outgoing costs against the budget. So we have a budget planned initially for our whole project, and we have to manage the outgoing costs against this budget. Okay. So in project cost management would include processes required to ensure that project is completed within the approved budget. Okay. So that's the main target of cost management. And there are processes involved in this project cost management. So there are three main processes: cost estimating, cost budgeting, and cost control. So those are the main three processes defined. So estimating is really important. So there we develop an approximation or estimate of the costs of the resources to complete a project. This includes all the costs involved in doing the particular activities of a project. And then after having an estimate, we do the budgeting by allocating the overall cost to individual work items. So after we have an approximation, so we allocate that the overall cost estimate to individual work items to establish a baseline for measuring the budget performance. Okay, so that's called cost budgeting. So in estimation, we had the estimate, and in budgeting, we put that estimator's overall cost to individual work items. And in cost control, we control the changes to the project budget. Okay, we have the estimate and we have the budget prepared. So now, while carrying out these activities, we keep an eye whether we are on the track, on the planned estimates. Okay, so that is done by cost control. So if there's any difference between the actual planned thing and the reality, so you have to take some actions to reduce that difference or the change. So that's done mainly in the cost controlling. So this is the cost management summary. So you can actually use this to look at in which state of the project these activities are carried out. Okay, these arrows show you the time of this is the project start and this is the project finish. So in planning, we do cost estimation and the cost budgeting. So that normally happens in the first half of the project. And these monitoring and controlling processes happen from project start to project finish. Okay, so that need to be carried out continuously to check whether there are any changes from the plan. So let's look at the first process group, cost estimating in more detail. So in cost estimating, there are different tools and techniques we use: analogous estimating, resource estimating, resource cost rates, bottom-up estimating, parametric estimating, resource analysis, cost of quality, and using project management software is also a tool which we can use. Okay. So let's have a look at few of these tools and techniques, and let's see what we can do with these tools in cost estimation. So in cost estimation, what we do is actually we look at the forecast of full project costs from the concept to finalization. So to have actually realistic cost estimation, one need to have a very good idea of the project requirements. Okay, so this needs to address all the costs. Actually, this the overall full project cost should include all the costs, including people related costs, material related costs, transport related costs, and the consultants and the admin assistants and everything. Okay, electricity, so materials and water and everything. You should address all the costs. Otherwise, the other cost, if you don't consider them, your cost estimate is not a realistic one. So, so do these cost estimation. We have different types of cost estimates used. First one is rough order magnitude estimates, or ROM. In short term, we call it ROM measurement, and budgetary estimate, and the definitive estimate. So those are the three main cost estimation types which we can use. There are more than that. Let's talk about them later. So the rough order of magnitude estimate, as the name implies, you can see it says rough. Okay. So rough order of magnitude estimate would provide an estimate of what the project will cost. Okay. It would refer as ballpark estimate or guesstimate or swag or broad gauge. Okay. So this estimate, it's not really realistic exact measurement. It's a rough measurement. There's a reason for that. This rough order magnitude estimate is normally done very early in a project. Okay. Often 3 or more years prior to project completion. So that is normally 3 or more years prior to project completion we do this. So, or even before a project is officially started, and this type of estimates help project selection processes. What is project selection process? So you as a project manager works in a company, software company. And for the company, there are proposals coming. And as a project manager, you have to select which projects to work on. Okay. Looking at all the aspects. What assets you have and how much money you can earn from carrying out that project. What are the risks associated? So looking at all those facts, you have to decide whether you are going to do that project or not. Okay, so that's called project selection. So this is done very early in the project. So it is rough normally. So the accuracy is very low. It's normally around minus 50% to 100%. So what is minus 50% to 100%? If the project actual cost could be 50% below the ROM estimate, it means project's actual cost could be 50% below the estimate or 100% above. So if this is the estimate you give in ROM, okay, so the real value could be here or here. Okay, 50% below or, so 50% should be smaller than this, length should be half of this. Okay, it's not drawn properly. This length should be half of this. 50% below or 100% above. Okay, 2 times this much. So as an example, ROM estimate that actually cost 100,000 would range between 50,000 to 200,000. Okay. So you can see the accuracy is very, very low in rough order magnitude estimate. And the second type is budgetary estimate. So this budgetary estimate is normally used, as the name implies, to allocate money into the budget. Okay. So normally organizations develop budgets actually 2 years into future. So this is normally done 1 to 2 years prior to project completion. So this is normally done, normally maybe 2 to 5 years, 3 or more years prior to project completion, even 5 years. Okay. Some projects may last for 5 years, that's why. So budgetary estimate is somewhat, when you compare with ROM, it's to some extent near to this, more than near to the work done. Okay, it means here we do this estimate often 3 or more years prior to the completion. We do this 2 years, 1 to 2 years prior to the completion. Okay. So we are more near to the project completion here than in the previous. That's what I wanted to tell you. Budgetary estimates are made 1 or 2 years prior to project completion. So the accuracy is normally between negative 10% to plus 25%. So when you compare it with ROM, you can see it's quite lower than, not the accuracy. Accuracy is higher than this one. So as an example, if the budgetary estimate actually costs 100,000, it would, the actual cost is 100,000, the budgetary estimate would range between 90,000, sorry. If the budgetary estimate is 100,000, the real costs so if this is 100,000, so that's what your budgetary estimate. So the real costs, actual costs would range between 90,000 to 125,000 here. 90,000 to 125,000. Okay. So that's somewhat, the range is smaller. Here the range is smaller than the range we have here. Okay. The accuracy is somewhat higher than the ROM estimate in budgetary estimate. And the definitive estimate is more accurate, and it would provide an accurate estimate of the project costs. This is the most accurate when you compare with the budgetary estimate and ROM estimate. The most accurate one is the definitive estimate. Okay, as the name implies, we try to have a definite measure. So this is normally done for making purchasing decisions. Okay, we need accurate measurements. So normally we know we go to the shop and ask the price. So those are the exact prices now. So we are very near to the purchasing. So we can have real values. Okay. So as an example, assume that your project need to purchase 1,000 personal computers. So in the next 3 months, so now you need to define a estimate. So that's we can use a definitive estimate to evaluate the supplier proposals. So you will ask several suppliers like SoftLogic, Advance, Singer to give you some proposals. So to evaluate those proposals, you can use this definitive estimate. You can have a definitive estimate and evaluate the proposals. So these definitive estimates are normally made 1 year or less prior to the project completion. So it is the most accurate. So if your estimate is here, the accuracy range is normally minus 5% to plus 10%. Okay. So the real value would be here or here. In between this, it can vary in between this range. So these 3 estimates, if you take them into one table and compare, you can see these 3 estimates when they are done normally 3 to 5 years before the project completion. We do the ROM, and budgetary we do 1 or 2 years before the project completion, and we do definitive estimates later in the project, normally less than 1 year out. Okay. And you can see the accuracies, we discussed this. And most accurate one is the definitive estimate. Okay. So why we do this? Rough order of magnitude estimate we do to provide estimate of the cost for selecting decisions. This is the normal thing. Okay. Normal application. And budgetary estimate will put dollars in the budget or money into the budget, And definitive estimate would provide details of purchases and estimates. It would estimate the actual cost. So those are the applications, three applications of this estimation types. So that's about cost estimation, which is the first process. So cost management plan is also one of the outputs of this process. So what's a cost management plan? It's a document that would describe how the organization will manage cost variance on the project. Okay. So we define the costs in the plan itself by having estimates and then budgeting. So in management plans, we mention or describe how can we manage this variance. What is the variance? The variance is in between the actual costs and the scheduled or the budget. For example, it should mention, as an example, how can we select the proposals from the suppliers that are higher or lower than the estimates. So assume in the previous example, we try to buy 1,000 computers, isn't it? So we have some proposals from the suppliers. And we have estimate, we have a definitive estimate. What are we going to do if their demand is higher or it is lower than our estimate? It should be documented properly beforehand. Okay, we can't decide at the moment. We are normally in project management, does it beforehand. So what were the decisions taken? That all information should be included in the cost management plan. So when you're developing this cost management plan, you have to take into account some details like which activities does the cost is taken in large amounts. A large cost is taken normally by the labor costs. So you have to actually keep in mind in cost monitoring cost variance, but specifically these processes which takes higher amount of cost. Okay, so you can use these tools when you are deciding this cost management plan, when you're doing this. So this is one of the tools which we can use, maximum departmental head counts. So this will identify number of labors, number of people you need to carry out the particular activity of a project. So there's an example given or a sample given. So this shows you the maximum number of people the Northwest Airlines determined to assign to each year of the project. Okay. So you can see how the project manager has assigned people into the departments, from the departments, okay? So in 1994, how many contractors are there, okay? And in reservations department, how many people were working? And in marketing systems, how many people were working? And in information systems, how many people were working? So this is a head count. Okay? So normally this, some people are paid higher than the others. As an example, these contractors are paid higher amount of money than the others. So because of that reason, you can see there's a very least number of contractors. In some years, there are no contractors. Okay, so you have to look at those aspects really carefully. And what are the other cost estimates tools and techniques which we can use in estimating the cost of a project? So the previously discussed three cost estimation techniques we use. Mainly, doesn't have a very good accuracy. They are used early in the project. Okay. The last one, it's not used early in the project. It's normally used in purchasing items. However, the other two, ROM and the budgetary estimate, are done quite early in projects. Okay. So let's look at these estimates: analogous or top-down estimate, bottom-up estimate or activity-based costing, and next one is parametric modeling. Okay. So this analogous or top-down estimate is used. Users normally actual cost of similar activities, benchmarks. Okay, previous similar projects as the basis for estimating the cost of the current project. We look at previous similar project. Okay. So this should increase the accuracy because the previous project is something some people from the same company have done, no? So the same set of people may have involved, and we have the same resources. So because of that reason, and it depends on the similarity as well, some projects may not be exactly the same thing. So if it's the exactly same thing, we could have a better measurement of the cost by using this analogous or top-down estimate. Okay. So the similarity to the previous project plays a major role in deciding the accuracy. Second one is bottom-up estimate or activity-based costing, which involves estimating individual work items. So in bottom-up estimate, we starts from the bottom. Okay, bottom layer of the WBS. We look at individual work items and how much does it cost, and sum them up from level to level. Okay. So your estimate is better if the work item or the activity is smaller. Okay. However, this estimate takes very lot of time, a very great amount of time to do, because you have to go by one by one. You have to estimate time for each and every activity. Okay, that's one reason, one disadvantage of this method. And the third one is parametric modeling, which we use a mathematical model to estimate project costs. Okay. Project characteristics are used here as the variables. So as an example, a model might provide an estimate of $50 per line of code. Okay, we look at the components of the activity. So the coding of the project. So we can estimate per line of code. Okay. We can look at all the line of code and all the lines of code, and then add up the amount and have an idea about the cost it takes. Okay. However, for this, when you are doing an estimate, you have to think about all of these other things as well. Programming language used, level of expertise, and size and the complexity of the data involved. So likewise, you have to consider everything when you are determining this value. Okay. So that's also challenging. So because of this reason, some models may be simpler. So in mathematical model, more detail you do it, the accuracy becomes higher. However, sometimes you may use very simple models as well, as a 10,000 ballpark estimate per workstation. So after that, you get the sum of that workstation's costs. If you have 3 workstations, you get ballpark measurements of each workstation by looking at a benchmark from your previous data. And then you add them up, so that adding all the parts is actually the mathematical model. Okay. And this is a sample cost estimate of a project. So what costs the most? What's the most costed? For project management, 20%, and for software, 40%. Hardware, 5%. Training and support, 13%. Reserves, normally they put some money as a reserve, because in case if we need more money, we can use them. So, some instances. Okay, so this is a sample project cost estimate. So you can see units, hours, and cost, and then it's multiplied and taken as a total. Okay, so this is a sample. So when determine this unit hours, you may need to use those cost estimation techniques. You may have look at previous costs in similar projects and then decide that. So now we are moving to cost budgeting, which is the second main process group in cost management. So we have inputs. So in cost budgeting, we had to look at what the activities are also. So we have to have the scope related documents, scope statement, work breakdown structure, WBS dictionary, and activity cost estimates from the previous process group, and activity cost estimate supporting details, and the project schedule developed in the time management, and the resource calendars, contracts, and cost management plan. So those are the inputs. So what are the tools which we are using? We can use parametric estimation, cost aggregation, and reserve analysis. Okay. So our output should be a baseline. So we have a baseline which includes the each and every individual activities estimated costs or budget. So in budgeting, it involves allocating the project cost estimate into individual work items. In previously in budgeting, we looked at the whole project. Okay, now we are looking at how we can allocate money into the individual components or activities. Okay. So what need to be come in this blank? The is required to required input into cost budgeting process. What is that? I didn't hear. Somebody told, isn't it? What need to be in this blank? So it need to be WBS, work breakdown structure, which defines work items. These work items are defined in the WBS. So we use it here. So after we have these work items and the total allocation, we can determine or we can allocate money into each and every activity of the project. So important output is a cost baseline. So what's a cost baseline? So it's actually a time phase budget. Okay, this budget allocation, after we do that, cost baseline would show you not only the amount of money allocated for each and every activity, but also it would relate to the timeline of the project. Okay, it's a time-based budget that project managers use to measure and monitor cost performance. So this estimating cost for each major project activity over time would provide a foundation for cost control. So we can look at this time, we should have spent this much of money of the project. At this time, we should have spent this much of cost of the project. So likewise, we have to estimate costs for each major project activity over time. Cost budgeting would also provide information for project funding requirements. And that means at what points will the money we need. Okay. So since we have a time phase budget, so we can ask our sponsor, at this time we need this amount of money. At this time we need this amount of money to our project, likewise. Okay. So that would provide information for project budgeting requirements as well. So here you can see the cost baseline and we can draw the expected cash flow here from the sponsor side. So we can give them the funding requirements by looking at the expected cash flow and the cost baseline. So this expected cash flow and funding requirements all together, we can have a look at when you are going with time. So we can ask from our sponsor to fund the project for particular amount of money looking at this graph. So the difference between this maximum funding and the end of the cost baseline is the management reserve. We have got some amount of money in our hand, which is called the management reserve. So that amount of money is required to carry out the activities of the project on time. Okay. That's a reserve. So we may have extra amount of money. So there are two questions. I'll skip for the moment. Let me see the time. Yeah, I think you can do these two questions and I'll end the lecture because it's already near to the end of the lecture.